Appreciate it. I know we're waiting here for a couple more minutes uh, for my colleagues and members of the 24th Navajo Nation Naabik'íyáti Committee to jump online. I know we'll probably be limited today, though, due to the fact that there is multiple meetings going on today, too, as well. So, again, thank you very much, everybody, being on the line and participate. I know that this was more of a structural meeting for staff and on the strategic issues and basic recommendations too as well. And if they had any recommendations on that, I think the Office of the President and Vice President for being on the line too as well. I know Mr. Paulson Chaco will be on the line to take if there's any further guidance from the executive branch. So again, thank you very much. Before we get into this, let's go ahead and wait a couple more minutes, and then we'll go ahead and kick it off with a further recommendation. So again, yeah, for everybody to be on the line.
Speaker, good morning, Chantal, Arnold Soigi, council members. Delegate Freeland's on the line.
Good morning, Yate Bennett. I think I heard Honorable Mark Freeland. Thank you very much for being with us, colleagues. Let's go get this Naabik'íyáti Committee of the 24th Navajo Nation Council started. We are having a work session today. We're here in Window Rock, Arizona on the Navajo Nation. I do not have any other of my colleagues here on the floor at this time. I know that they're well working out there in their respected communities. So we do have a work session agenda here before us. Today's date is Wednesday, July 14th, 2021. Time now is 10:18 a.m. And presiding is myself, Seth Damon, Speaker of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. And with that, let's go ahead and continue on down. Ms. Stokes, you might do a roll call, and then we'll go ahead and move on from there. See how many members of the council or committee members we have on the line. Again, we don't need a work quorum, but we do need at least some members in order for us to go ahead and make this an adequate work session.
Good morning, honorable committee members. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Paul Begay did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Nathaniel Brown did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Speaker Seth Damon.
Present.
Honorable Speaker Seth Damon is present. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Good morning, Freeland's present. Thank you.
Honorable Mark Freeland answered. Roll call. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Jamie Henyo did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Rick Nez. Honorable Rick Nez. Honorable Rick Nez did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Carl Slater. Honorable Carl Slater. Honorable Carl Slater did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Otto So did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Edison Winika.
Here.
Honorable Edison Winika answered. Roll call. Honorable Edmund Yazzie. Honorable Edmund Yazzie. Honorable Edmund Yazzie did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair did not answer. Roll call. Going back up. Honorable Elmer Begay.
This is Delegate Elmer Begay Kalina. Thank you.
Honorable Elmer Begay answered roll call. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. did not answer roll call. Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Paul Begay did not answer roll call. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Nathaniel Brown did not answer roll call. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton did not answer roll call. Honorable Amber Canaspa Crotty. Honorable Amber Canaspa Crotty. Honorable Amber Canaspa Crotty did not answer roll call. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. did not answer roll call. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona did not answer roll call. Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Jamie Henyo did not answer roll call. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James did not answer roll call. Honorable Rick Nez. Honorable Rick Nez. Honorable Rick Nez did not answer roll call. Honorable Carl Slater. Honorable Carl Slater. Honorable Carl Slater did not answer roll call. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. did not answer roll call. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. did not answer roll call. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So did not answer roll call. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So did not answer roll call. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So did not answer roll call. Honorable Otto So.
I'm here.
Honorable Otto So answered roll call. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. did not answer roll call. Honorable Edmund Yazzie. Honorable Edmund Yazzie. Honorable Edmund Yazzie did not answer roll call. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair did not answer roll call. Speaker, you have 5 members present, including yourself.
Delegate Paul Begay is present also.
Honorable Paul Begay answered roll call. 6 members present, including yourself.
This is Delegate Rick Nez on the call. Thank you. Yate pena.
Honorable Rick Nez answered roll call. 7 members present.
Good morning. This is Delegate Caleb Gay Jr. present.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. answered roll call. 8 members present.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Pat, we have 8 members present. Thank you for being here with us. Well, let's continue on down. Let's continue on down, colleagues, to invocation. I know that we had Honorable Elmer Begay at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting earlier do an invocation. So thank you very much, Honorable Elmer Begay, for that invocation. So let's go on down, colleagues. Item number 2, recognizing guests and visiting officials. At this time, colleagues, is there any recognitions? If there are none, let's go ahead and move on down to item number 3, which is our work session. In today's work session, colleagues, we're discussing on, again, the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. In this presentation today, we're going to be looking into recommendations that are going to be presented by Department of Justice, Office of Management and Budget, Office of the Controller, and then if there's any further comments or questions from any of the other executive division or executive branch divisions. We did let Division of Community Development, Division of Economic Development, Division of General Services, Division of Health, Division of Natural Resources, Division of Social Services, and the Navajo Nation Land Department, and also the Navajo Nation Department of Transportation to go ahead and give any further recommendations from their part. And then last but not least, recommendations, anything from Indian Health Services. So colleagues, with that, if I go ahead and move on down, what I'll do is go to DOJ, then OMB, then the controller, and then I'll come back to if there's any questions from my colleagues. And then we'll go ahead and move on down to more of the structured individual branches that are under the executive branch, and finally back to IHS. So thank you again, everybody, for listening in this morning into this afternoon. I know that there will be recommendations from these different organizations, maybe possible changes, maybe waivers of some of the laws, maybe some of the individual options that are available to the Navajo Nation Naabik'íyáti Committee and the Council to really try to help assist in getting a lot of these things through the process without having any kind of deterrencies. So again, thank you very much for being on the line, everyone. So let me go ahead and go on down to our strategic issues and opportunities. Item number A is the Navajo Nation Department of Justice. Is there anybody on from the Department of Justice this morning?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. This is Deputy Attorney General Kimberly Dutcher on the line on behalf of the Navajo Nation Department of Justice.
Great. Thank you very much, Dutcher, for being here with us. I'll go ahead and turn the floor over to you at this time.
Mr. Speaker, we have a PowerPoint prepared for our presentation. I would like to know if I could kindly share my screen. So
yes, you are totally available to share your screen, Ms. Dutcher.
Okay. Just give me a moment here. Okay, can you see that slide on your screen, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I will begin. Yate, good morning, Kimberly Dutcher, Inishia. Katna Sani Nishla, Do Bilagana Bashichin, Naka Dina Edashache, Bilagana Edashanale. Good morning, Mr. Speaker and honorable delegates of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning and to present some of the Navajo Nation Department of Justice's needs regarding the American Rescue Plan Act. in terms of strategic issues and opportunities. We were first, as you can see from the slide, we were asked to present on this back in April, and the date has changed a couple times, so we're happy that we're been given the opportunity now to discuss some of the issues before the Navajo Nation Department of Justice. Just give me a second. Let me figure out how to proceed on the next slide. Okay, so as you know, the Department of Justice is established by statute at 2 Navajo Nation Code Section 1961 is where it starts. And our charge is to provide legal services subject to available resources to the Navajo Nation and government, which includes the 3 branches of government, the executive branch divisions, departments, and programs, the 110 chapters, and the nation's entities. DOJ is also charged with administering the Navajo Hopi Legal Services Program, as well as the Office of the Prosecutor. And joining me this morning to talk about the Office of the Prosecutor's needs is Acting Chief Prosecutor Brandon Bitsui, who will be on a little bit later. DOJ is also required to perform all of its duties and responsibilities in accordance with the highest standards of legal ethics as required by the Navajo Nation Bar Association and by the American Bar Association's Code of Professional Responsibility. And what I'm sharing now is just, this is the civil side of DOJ, if you will. This is our org chart there, which is probably a little bit too small for you to see, but predominantly illustrates the units and how DOJ is organized, including our administrative staff, the Office of the Prosecutor, the Navajo Hopi Legal Services Program, and the units including the chapter unit, the Human Services and Government unit, the Economic and Community Development unit, the Natural Resources unit, the Tax and Finance unit, the Litigation unit, and the Water Rights unit. And following that is the organizational chart for the Office of the Prosecutor, which includes its administrative arm, the Office of the Chief Prosecutor, and the various districts throughout the Navajo Nation that provide criminal justice related services in those respective areas. So in terms of critical needs, we have narrowed those down to 3 different areas, which include technology, office space and repair, and additional staffing. In terms of technology, the last upgrades that were made to DOJ's systems were done in 2010. We had a server failure in 2019 during the closure of the government, and we had to scramble to kind of put together some Band-Aids to continue to support our attorneys while they were working remotely. And our system, however, is in desperate need of upgrade and management systems to support our work. And this includes network and system administration, file sharing, hardware, case management software, licenses, other equipment, wireless communication, and consulting services and training so we can manage these upgraded systems. So to accommodate these much needed upgrade service equipment and other services, we're requesting $2.5 million. Second area of priority is office space and repair. And I'd like right now to have Acting Chief Prosecutor Brandon Bitsui join our call so he can discuss those areas and to describe some of the state of the various district offices' needs. Brandon, are you on the call to do that at this time?
Thank you, Deputy Attorney General. I am available. Mr. Speaker, if I may.
Thank you very much, Mr. McKay. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr.
Or
Speaker.
Mr. Bitsui. Is it Mr. Begay or?
Bitsui.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No
Mr.
worries.
Bitsui.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, honorable members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. Our requests for under the ARPA funds are mainly regarding our building, office space, and repairs. Right now, the DILCON office, prosecutor's office, she occupies 2 to 3 offices in a trailer next behind the court. She was previously working out of her garage for a bit before we were allowed back in, but that building is old. It needs, and we're on loan from the police department. So again, it's not a permanent solution. We would need an actual either a mobile unit or some sort of office that would be permanent for the office of the prosecutor. She's been bounced around a few times, both in the courthouse and then with the police department. There's no office space in Vilcon. She's looked, and there's no other. All the sites that were identified where there were issues with privacy, because as a prosecutor, when we talk to victims of crime, we'd like those conversations to be private, and in a lot of the places that she identified, that wasn't possible or feasible. Further, regarding both the Window Rock office and the RAMA office in particular, the RAMA office needs service to the sewer and the water line because there's issues with it. It is a mobile trailer that we're renting from the local RAMA chapter. But there are definitely issues with the water line and the sewer that need repaired. The Window Rock office is just an older building. I think it was built in the 80s, and we're still operating out of it. It just needs upgrades to create safety barriers between visitors and staff and improve the airflow and ventilation of all the offices. In particular, also with the Chinle, Kayenta, and Crown Point and Shiprock offices, those offices all need repair, or they need to create a safety barrier between visitors and staff as well. Sometimes we do have run-ins with irate defendants that come in, and they can become hostile, and it would be nice to have a safety barrier there in instances where that does occur. And something that we'd also that I forgot to list on here is the Shiprock office. As we've outgrown the space. Further, there's now 6 people, employees at the Shiprock office, but it should only accommodate maybe 4. And they're becoming cramped in there. And so we'd like to identify a new space where they could move and move in there. But in the meantime, they would need better ventilation and better air cooling. In the recent weeks, I've had to send them home a few times because the swamp cooler is inadequate, because Shiprock has been in the triple digits on some days, and those days the swamp cooler is inadequate. They would need some sort of refrigerated air and actual air conditioner. So that's why we've requested the 1.5 million. Thank you.
I'll continue now, Mr. Speaker. And the third area of our request has to do with staffing. DOJ simply does not have the human resources to meet the increased workload demands and the legal challenges presented by the pandemic and subsequently the ensuing receipt of the ARPA funds. We're respectfully requesting $12.5 million in ARP funds to cover the costs of retaining attorney consultants to assist DOJ in representing the nation in distant forums, to provide specialized expertise, and to respond to the increased and exceptional demand for legal services consistent with our statute to provide legal services to the nation, subject to available resources. And in addition, we're also requesting staffing needs to include 2 prosecutors to prosecute environmental crimes, We're also requesting 2 attorneys and advocates to staff the chapter unit. And if you did not have the opportunity to see, the chapter unit is presently staffed by only an attorney, an assistant attorney general, Roderick Briguet, and an attorney candidate. And we will be bringing on an additional attorney candidate soon. But just those 2 provide legal services to all 110 chapters, as well as on other chapter related matters. We're also requesting 2 attorneys to expand the capacity of our litigation unit. And as well as we're requesting 2 attorneys or advocate for Indian Child Welfare Act or ICWA matters, and also 2 legal support positions to support these additional staff. And as I described, additional funds for outside counsel to provide specialized expertise and to otherwise assist us. And I'm just going to reference back to our statute where DOJ is required to provide competent and official legal service to the nation's government to protect and represent the legal interests of the nation. And with respect to the Office of the Prosecutor, to adequately and efficiently prosecute adult and criminal juvenile dependency cases, white collar crime, and child dependency matters. And with respect to the Navajo Hopi Legal Services Program, to assist Navajo relocatees with relocation benefits to which they are entitled. So in summary, what DOJ is asking for is funds to support our staffing needs, funds to support and address our critical technology needs, which will overall enable us to enable our staff to provide competent and efficient legal services to the nation so that we have better access to information and to communicate more effectively through modern technology. And we're also requesting space or funds to improve and provide building space, to renovate existing space, and to pay for needed repairs and also for supplies. So I thank you very much for your time and attention. And Brandon and I are available to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dutcher and Mr. Bitsui, for that presentation. With that, I'm going to go on just as indicated on our agenda to Office of Management and Budget, then Office of the Controller, and then I'll go back to if there's any questions to my colleagues. So with that, is there anybody on from Office of Management and Budget at this time? I know that they might be on the Budget and Finance Committee meeting today too as well. So as well as the Office of the Controller. Is anybody on from the Office of the Controller?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. This is Robert Willie from the Controller's Office.
Oh, Mr. Willie. Go ahead. The floor is yours,
morning.
Mr. Willie. Oh.
Controller is actually on another meeting right now, so she asked me to present. She did provide a memo back on June 17, 2021 for the American Rescue Plan. For the record, my name is Robert Willie. I'm an accounting manager with the Navajo Nation Office of the Controller. So going back to the memo, Elizabeth Begay indicated that that we needed an expenditure plan of about $130,308,811, which is 7% of the $1.8 billion to cover the cost of administering the FRF programs over a 5-year period, which is from 2021 to 2024 for the activity period, and from 2024 to 2026 for the closeout period. The proposed administrative cost would allow OOC to provide effective management oversight of the FRF programs. What she listed below was a portion of the expenditure plan. which would provide oversight and compliance with uniform guidance, such as procurement and budget type issues, reporting to the Treasury, the interim reporting, the quarterly project and expenditure reports that are due within 30 days of each quarter or each calendar quarter, and annual reports. It will also help to meet the needs of single audit requirements. She also indicated that hosting the portal for the assistant programs, if there's any such type within this next arena of funding, such as hardship, small business, chapter distribution, and most importantly, the subrecipient monitoring for the multiple contracts that the nation may enter into with other entities. She also indicated that the financial management system would be needed to be upgraded, which is the FMIS optimization, electronic filing, and cybersecurity. In addition, I believe that we'd also need additional accountants to take on this type of funding. Technology also, as the Department of Justice had indicated, and upgrading our technology. So those are the points that I have, Mr. Speaker, and members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee. Thank you for letting me present.
Thank you, Mr. Willie. We're trying to, you have a memo?
Yeah, I sent it to
Okay,
Manny.
we sent that memo out.
I sent it to Manny.
With his colleagues, that memo has been sent out. So thank you very much, Mr. Willie. We do have that in the record, and I know my colleagues had to receive that before too as well. So without, if there's any comments or questions, colleagues, for Department of Justice or the Office of the Controller at this time, I'll go ahead and turn the floor over to Naabik'íyáti committee members.
Speaker, do you hear me? That was
Yep,
Otto
I
So.
can hear you. Good morning, Honorable Otto. So,
Good morning. I would like to ask some questions since the controller and office and Department of Justice is on the line. May I? Do I have the floor, Speaker?
yes, you have the floor, Honorable Otto. So,
Okay, awesome. Thank you. What I wanted to get to is that the funds that are being requested from the Office of the Controller to oversee and manage the ARPA dollars. How much of that is slated for legal management? I know that the controller's office does the financial management, but the controller's office will continue to require legal assistance for and the legal management costs. Has the controller's office incorporated those dollars so that the controller's office and Department of Justice can work hand in hand relating to that management cost of the funds over a period of so many years? And then I know that the Department of Justice has other needs, which Brandon, acting chief prosecutor, spoke to, indicating that the needs of additional offices and other, I guess, additional setups for to mitigate COVID, and then also, to help with the units other units that are within the Department of Justice, such as what Madam Deputy Attorney General spoke to of the chapter unit, legal. And that's where I am indicating that, Department of Justice should have one ask for where they need to beef up within their within the program, so that proper legal advice will be ready to be rendered when, whether the chapters ask or whether Department of Economic Development, the Economic Development Unit requires a opinion or other aspects. And so that's just my thought of the management costs. Wonder if the management of the overall costs is actually including the Department of Justice to manage the help with the management of the ARPA dollars, because the Office of the Controller has that authority there, but they're going to need legal. They're going to need the legal side to support their management of the costs, and that's where I believe Department of Justice can charge maybe personnel hours to those business units, so that the proper guidance could be given, or if it's pertaining to outside attorneys. So that's just one of my thoughts there. The other is that I guess wonder if does the Department of Justice have a ballpark figure of the total amount of what they are requesting for from ARPA to apply to their needs, and where their needs and wants for the COVID dollars. The other is that we know that the Navajo Nation budget season will be coming up, and some of these dollars they request from ARPA be deducted from the initial comprehensive budget request. So those are just some of my questions there. Thank you, and go on mute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Otto. So with that, let me go back to Department of Justice. Well, actually, colleagues, is there any other further comments or questions at this time? If not, let me go back to Department of Justice. Ms. Dutcher or Mr. Bitsui to reply to Honorable Otto. So.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Some of the, I think, questions Delegate So presented, I think were addressed to the Office of the Controller, but I'll attempt to answer those that related directly to the Department of Justice. As I described in the presentation earlier, we had 3 requests that were related. The total of those requests is $16.5 million. And with respect to the fiscal year 22 budget request, DOJ received about the same allocation as it did as last year's, and you'll be seeing our budget come in, and we will be presenting some unmet needs. But the request here that I have described, some of that the funds we've been allocated would not sufficiently address the needs that I have described here today. And In addition, one more other thing I wanted to point out is that the Department of Justice also did not receive an allocation of CARES funds. So these needs we have, most of which have ensued since the COVID-19 pandemic, but others, for example, with respect to technology and building space renovation and repair have been long-term needs that have also become more critical and more important to address due to the pandemic, really ensuring safety for the employees. It certainly is an important issue, but became more and more critical during the pandemic, as well as the need to address our technology while most of our staff have worked remotely and continue to provide legal services to the nation, and also with the Office of the Prosecutor providing critical public safety needs for the nation during the pandemic. So Brandon, if there's anything else you would like to add, I certainly welcome you to do so. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Delegate So for your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Bitsui. If nothing, then let me go on to Mr. Willie, response to Honorable Otto So. Mr. Willie, you might have to press *6.
Hello, I'm sorry. I was talking to myself. The question that Delegate Otto So did present was there any legal fees? And the answer to that would be no for the controller's request, albeit we will need attorney advice also on these. And I know that the plan is going through the process, and I believe that's going on at Budget and Finance right now. And that would more clearly define the amounts from what I've read in the legislation. So this is our ultimate budget that we would like to do the reporting and watching over these funds. So right now, that's the answer that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and continue back on down then. Is there any, let me go back to the floor. Colleagues, is there any other further comments or questions at this time to either the Controller's Office or the Department of Justice? If there's none, let me continue on down
Speaker.
then. Yes.
Speaker,
Yes. I heard
this
you
is
speak.
Naabik'íyáti checking in, sir.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Chairman,
I am
go
online.
ahead.
No, Speaker,
Okay, yeah.
members of the council, all our guests, just for the record, I'm on the call, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
Delegate So.
Honorable Otto So, go ahead. Follow up.
I think we know that the controller is the controller's office is a program that with the oversight of the legislative branch, and I think we need to have a conversation directly with the controller's office relating to the request for the management, because to ask for a set aside of the management costs over a period of so many years, I think we need to have that rundown, what it all entails of. And I would think that the legal expertise within the Navajo Nation, that cost should be included with that request, so that, you know, the Controller's Office and the Department of Justice will be able to work hand in hand relating to the overseeing the ARPA dollars, and instead of operating in silos. And we know that there's other needs at the Department of Justice, and that I do clearly support. But, like, you know, if the legal review is required for certain documents and things like that, you know, I think that should be part of the management of the ARPA dollars from the controller's aspect. And that's just something that I would suggest, Speaker, because I'm getting to see that, you know, you're saying, oh no, you know, this is our request, and and that's just something that I just see from here. That way we're not spending money left and right, and these dollars are subjected to the line item veto. And you know, you have to be on the good side in order to get these dollars appropriated. So, I'm just trying to find a way so that, you know, some of these legal analysis that's required, whether it's managing the dollars, you know, whether it's through checking up on an entity that has received some dollars, and for sure Department of Justice will be part of the conversation there. So that's just what I'm saying, because I'm getting to see a lot of the silos popping up now. So, that's all.
Oh, thank you. As indicated too as well, as colleagues, we in the ARPA funds, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Willie, but there is no indirect cost that's being available. So when the different departments are asking for funding on how to execute this, I think that's something that's something that the council needs to really consider. But in order to do that, I know that the recommendation too as well, that's coming down from the executive branch, is that an overall amount of 10% be utilized to set up and start those that direct response to building out these certain different programs, to have the equipment and also the overall manpower in order for each one of these departments to start building out their deliverables, in order for us to not be backed up, or kind of strategically position ourselves in order to really be ready to draw down on these funds as best as we possibly can. But I know that just hearing the amount that Mr. Willie is addressing is really trying to focus in on a point of interest that will make us exceed that 100 or actually that 10% threshold. And I think that's something that's critical, that's needed to be expressed in order for the council to consider, especially as we know the reporting mechanisms and being on top of us with the Treasury Department is something that's definitely important. But again, Honorable Otto, so when we do have an overall view and a presentation from the Office of the President and Vice President and those recommendations going forward. I think this is something that definitely needs to be brought up to the President's office in making the final decision. So thank you again, Honorable Otto. So, and we are, colleagues, just as a recommendation, there was a push to have a meeting, a leadership meeting with the President on this initiative in order for us to go ahead and move forward. And that's not only on just what's the recommendations that we hear from today, but also all the other recommendations that are in the process in order for us to cut the red tape internally and externally in order for us to go ahead and have the best possible drawdowns and the best possible building capacities in order for us to go ahead and vie for moving forward. So again, Kat, Honorable Otto, so for asking these questions and concerns. At this time, colleagues, are there any other further comments or questions for either the Office of the Controller or the Department of Justice?
Mr. Speaker, no, so.
Honorable Otto, so go ahead. Floor's yours, boss.
As these dollars are appropriated, even to programs, and we got proposals, we got the wish list proposals from the programs, and from the get-go to start funding them fully. How does it may not even be appropriate here, but allowing allocations to be in percentage ratios with a timeline of expenditures so that additional funds could be released. And wondering how Department of Justice and the Office of Controller feels about that, because when you look at what happened with the CARES Act, we appropriated funds to programs and they just didn't have the capacity to get these dollars out. There's one program, General Services, we appropriated $10 million to disinfect tribal buildings, and they didn't use not 1 cent. And at the end, all the dollars went back to the hardship account. But General Services oversees the tribal buildings, and those dollars weren't utilized. Then there is programs such as economic development that had plenty of money is left over. That correction, that didn't. I guess due to the deadline, they didn't. Process any more additional dollars for the artisan assistants and the assistant for the business people, and some monies will return, and that's what I'm asking is that, is setting time frames for expenditures something that we could start having the discussion so that we know that when expenditures happen, and just to have the programs managing a little bit less money at a time, because I think if we give them a lot of money, it really I think it just overwhelms them. And if we just give them the amount, would be percentage ratio, 25% of what they ask for out of the total. I think that type of distribution should work, and at least it allows the programs to really say, hey, we need to use this money by this certain time frame. And then the other is that as the legislation that's at budget finance committee, are we gonna treat and appropriate the dollars as through a budget season or a budget session type of appropriation, or are we gonna slate one-time appropriation and approve carryovers for 3 years until they utilize those dollars? So that aspect is what I was trying to listen out for also, because we're talking about 3 years, and there's 3 physical years that we're going to be dealing with budget years, and how is that going to coincide with the Navajo Nation budget? And so that's the other thing, and I keep sort of putting my ear out for a sort of a leadership meeting between the council and the executive branch on how this is going to play out. But I asked so many times, but I just stopped asking because I don't think it's going to go anywhere. What is the plan? We have a legislation that's going through the process right now relating to the fund management plan of ARPA. And as we move forth on ARPA, those are just some of my concerns. How are you guys going to appropriate these dollars? And these basic information is some that I think is really up to leadership to have that dialogue. And since we got the dollars deposited into our account, the nation's accounts, we haven't had that discussion on the preliminary way of how the dollars are going to be dispersed. And I know there's a fund management plan legislation that's going through the process, as I indicated. But yeah, we read it up, but through the dialogue, I don't think the Navajo Nation councils, the 24 delegates or the 23 delegates, was not part of the conversation there. And I think it was more of the 3 branch chiefs. But there's nothing in the law that says that the 3 branch chiefs will make this decision. And we know that today Budget and Finance Committee is addressing that, but thank you.
Thank you very much, boss, for that recommendation. At this time, colleagues, are there any other further questions or comments for the Department of Justice or Office of the Controller?
Should say. Speaker.
Yes.
As Chris on the other desk along the line of Chanel, I do so. A quick regards to the.
Eugene, so you have the floor.
Can you hear me today? Question. So, as on the other desk regarding to the Fletcher, and Brandon, so yeah. Regarding the prosecutor to prosecute natural resource as on the the laws. We had a fight a few years back, maybe during the Ice Age. We asked for a separate court system regarding to this the issue of livestock or theft or coyotes problem or dog problem, etc. All to do with natural resource. But it never did materialize. I was wondering what happened. And now today we are requesting for a prosecutor along that line. And if we do have a separate court system, we would have a judge and a prosecutor, etc. that will take care of only that on those issues regarding natural resource object. So that like it was being said, how is this plan? Can we see the plan of what being proposed regards to a prosecutor that's going to do only the natural resource? Is it there? Is there 1, 2, 3, or how are we going to do this? That's my question, Judge. So we need to go further, but always, how long is this money going to play out? Like it was said, we only have a few bucks that's in the bank that we're all trying to put some in our pocket, all division, or they're asking for that. So to even it out and to do more, like the president was saying, we got more projects that's, even but maybe 10 times or 20 times or 100 times more, we need more money for across the Navajo Nation. But this money is just for a few years, and I wonder what's going to happen after that in regards to our economic. We don't have any money that's flowing back. And it's all not this kill is Judge Fletcher to Brandon. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. So that I'll turn back to the floor to first over Department of Justice if there's any response, and then over to Mr. Willie too as well.
Hello, Brandon Bitsui with the Office of the Prosecutor. Thank you for the question, Delegate Eugene. So right now, as far as a plan for for my office specifically, the two prosecutors that would prosecute environmental crimes, we're really early in the planning stages. I would hopefully, try to make them permanent positions, because they would honestly be the beginning of starting a environmental unit within the prosecutor's office, and that they may even take on other duties of enforcing livestock resource enforcement, because they're it's very specific law that they're going to be specialized in, and they'll be experts for Navajo Nation, because the Navajo Nation Office of the Prosecutor has the ability and the authority to enforce all of the environmental laws under Navajo Nation law, a lot of them under Title III, I believe, like the Navajo Nation Clean Air, the Clean Water Act, all of these, all of the environmental protection acts that the Navajo Nation Council has passed. There are sections in there for criminal prosecution if any violators, aren't following the regulations. However, we don't receive, when we do receive referrals, but it kind of, when you're giving these types of cases to a prosecutor that mainly handles battery or DUIs, not that they can't do it, but it's just kind of, it's an outlier. I'd rather have specific prosecutors that are focused on it, so that, they're not so kind of thrown off, and this is what they focus on. And, if we have specialization within the prosecutor's office, we'd see, and if we have we let Navajo Nation and EPA know that, we have this unit, we can start, enforcing these laws more aggressively because we have dedicated resources to it. I think it would really benefit the Navajo Nation. But to answer your question directly, Ms. Delegate, so there's been no plan of operation or where they would be situated, but loosely thinking, I would have these two prosecutors. One, would cover probably the eastern and the other the western side of the Navajo Nation. They'd be able to file criminal complaints in any of the district courts. They would both have working relationships with the professionals at the Environmental Protection Agency and within the different departments within the Navajo Nation, and they would also be able to do trainings, and ideally they would be able to stay permanent, and we'd be able to show that there is a benefit to having these specialized prosecutors for the Navajo Nation. But hopefully that answers your question. If not, I'm available. I can clarify. Thank you.
Speaker should say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mitsui. With that, let me go back to Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So, floor is yours.
Okay, Brendan. So, one of the qualifications regards to the prosecutor that we've been pushing on the floor, but this prosecutor might have also has a qualification regards to environmental, as you're saying. In Title I, there's a lot of areas where things cannot be done, like taking the deer out into the plains and just leaving it there dead. All the bones and all the innards inside and everything just goes all over the place, and that's our nature. And also antlers, etc., or the skin or the hides, or these kind of or the laws out there that's natural, the elements of it. So these are some of the things that needs to be required, or as a qualification. That's what how I would see it. But we're in the Western world, so we have to go by Western laws, I reckon, according to what you guys are proposing to how to be qualified for prosecutor in regards to environmental, because there's other issues, that's within the Title I, but it's not written in there, but it's written in our way of life, where you can't hurt this, hurt that, etc. Or these are some of the laws that are not written regarding to environmental. It is over hostile. Thank you, I should say. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Honorable Eugene. So, colleagues, I don't have anybody else texting in or wanting to have any further questions. Is that it for the Office of the Controller and Department of Justice in refer of comments or questions?
Speaker, this is Madam Deputy Attorney General. There are no more comments and no more issues that we'd like to present at this time. Again, on behalf of the Navajo Nation Department of Justice, and thank you for the opportunity for letting us present our needs today.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Thatcher. And thank you very much, Mr. Mitsui and Mr. Willie too as well. Shahab for being here with us, and thank you for sending over those presentations to council or to the Naabik'íyáti committee. With that, colleagues, let me go ahead and move on down then to the executive branch divisions. If there's anybody on, I know that there's numerous different meetings today, but if there was any recommendations or strategic issues that any one of the departments wanted to bring up that was outside the scope of their presentations, we wanted them to present that at this time, especially if there was any recommendations in regards to some of the red tape that was hindering some of the projects through the process, or other recommendations that is being presented either by my colleagues too as well. to each one of the respective divisions or departments. So with that, let me go ahead and move on down. At this time, I'll start with the economic development. I'm actually community development. I don't know if there's anybody on from the division of community development.
Yeah, a speaker.
Oh, goddamn, Yellowman. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. We appreciate the time here. Otto, good morning to the honorable delegates of Naabik'íyáti. And I know it's been a hectic morning. We do have other callers listening into BNF as well. I guess we do have a few items that we would like to bring up. Many of them have been discussed already or have been shared. And I think they do involve DCD, but also the nation as well. Many of these items have been discussed through the white paper, ongoing discussions regarding right-of-way. I think those have already been fully discussed in other presentations, such as NTUA. I think some of the areas that we're trying to look at or address with DCD is the housing plan, ARPA plan, as well as the procurement that we encountered last year during the CARES Act. We do understand that last year the CARES Act was time sensitive and quite complicated in a sense. And I do appreciate that the new language, possibly in the fund management, will allow for DOJ to provide those eligibility requirements. So I appreciate that language. Also look at the language in the fund management, possibly for the controller's office to address the fiscal matters. So that provides some clarification for DCD. We just want to bring up a few items. When we look at moving forward with ARPA, we look at some of the housing areas and the land status. We'll continue to work with BIA on adjusting some of the land status. Also, BLM, I think there's some areas we went to, we did a tour or a house assessment out towards Chaco Canyon last week. And we continue to see homes very close to BLM or on near the BLM and very close to water line and power line infrastructure. But we need to advance those conversations, and I think the nation has been doing that. So that's just something we want to bring up. I think also in addressing housing, when we look at home site leases, those have been areas that we have brought up as well. We'll continue to work with the lands department, Mr. Halona, on these areas or in these areas. Many chapters it's the chapters that know who have home site lease or maybe who are in the process of receiving or working towards a home site lease. And as a result, most recently, we've had chapters requesting for some, I guess, overhead costs or costs to cover those home site lease applications. So we're in a position where chapters who know really have the best information as to who's needing that, those costs covered, those submissions are coming to DCD. We're hoping to package that information and costs with our ARPA plans, our housing plans, but we'll continue to advance that conversation on home site lease and work with Navajo Lands Department. Again, in our conversation with the lands department and home site lease, and really looking at some of these additional clearances or additional assistance from lands, we know that lands department has been having one-stop shop conversations with RDC. We support those conversations. There's also, prior to the pandemic, DCD was in conversations with the lands department. It is possible that the lands department or Division of Natural Resources can authorize members from DCD, such as our archaeological staff or positions, to provide some of those clearances as well. So there's room for additional coordination there. So we look forward to having more of those conversations with the lands department. One thing, Speaker and members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council, is we do want to bring up what CPMD utilizes. They utilize or they access information from what they call an RS means category, RS means. And that gives us the national average square footage, and then it gives us kind of an indication of the square footage of what we're looking at here on Navajo Nation. And we do utilize that. We have seen an increase of square footage. Right now, we do have one of our buildings on the Navajo Nation as high as $900 per square foot. It puts us in a really tough position because we are obligated to make decisions based on the funding sources. This particular building is in New Mexico. It's TIF funded, New Mexico Capital Outlay funded, and we're obligated to make the best decisions for these funds and for the community. But we are facing a high square footage and construction costs on the nation here that's bringing materials and supplies, that's also addressing some of the modifications that the contractors have been making. Some of these modifications include additional resources or construction costs in steel. So that leads to some of those modifications. We're in a position of, do we accept those modifications? Do we allow for some of our contractors to include these costs, or do we look at other materials that may be sufficient to the construction? So those are some of the conversations and issues we're facing. But also overall, there is a national cost increase on square footage. We just happen to be hit a little bit harder here on the Navajo Nation. I would caution, or I would maybe go as far as additional presentations on what we'll be looking at or how we're going to brace the nation on moving forward with construction costs or shortfalls, so to speak. We do have one project where we provide a before and after picture of before COVID and after COVID on a new chapter building. I want to make sure I get to the right page. Prior to COVID, this chapter was allocated or funded at a particular cost with citizen dollars, and then shortly after COVID, there was an increase of a little over $1 million due to those increased costs. So we do have quite a few projects that have a before and after COVID cost increase. And those are some of the challenges that we are seeing currently, even before we move into ARPA projects. I'll start to wrap up here, Speaker. And then I think the other thing we want to add to the conversation is under Navajo Nation procurement, the 164B, some of the challenges that I mentioned were the costs, inflation. And then one of the areas that I know we've had some discussion on with leadership is reviewing the time for the 164. I think internally, I think we are bombarded with this process. I am often in a position where if I report to New Mexico State, they're even inquiring, New Mexico State leadership inquiring on our 164 process. And our 164 process is intended to have reviewers and deem documents sufficient. However, the turnaround time on that can be cumbersome. And we do have additional recommendations for the 164. So the 164 process is something that we would like to address moving forward. But also I understand that there's some discussion on remaining or utilizing the emergency procurement as well for ARPA. So we appreciate that as well. I think lastly, we have a combination at DCD, several projects. We have New Mexico, Citizen, Utah projects. We have been looking internally at the 5% obligation. That was an executive order, I believe in 2013. I have reached out to Secretary on looking, maybe addressing these issues in the future. But currently, the reason why I'm bringing that up is the 5% obligation is our current system does not allow for the nation to be time responsive to a lot of these requirements imposed on the nation. I believe that there are other alternatives or alternative ways of having good faith in paying or encumbering, similar to the Citizen project for the heavy equipment that we're encountering right now. We're losing vendors due to the fact that we cannot provide, or we're not ensuring that good faith that we will be able to encumber or pay out those vendors. And in the last several weeks, we've lost about 13 or 14 vehicles due to our internal system. So again, these are internal. They're not geared towards anyone in particular or anything in particular. We merely just some of the experiences we face at DCD. And oftentimes some of these may require additional individuals or more staffing or even utilizing and maximizing technology or entering into technological systems where, I know these were discussed during the one-stop shop or even moving forward, advancing the conversation of the ARPA office. Certainly these recommendations can be incorporated there. So we do look forward to a better process. So Speaker, those would be just my short comments for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Yellowman, and thank you very much for those recommendations. I would ask Dr. Yellowman if there's any possible way that those recommendations can be turned over in some kind of written format, or even just your notes just turned over so that I can clearly follow through on some of those recommendations, especially on some of the different opportunities that your division has, and maybe working together with the oversight to help fix some of those necessary requirements in order to have a smoother process. So again, I thank you very much, Dr. Yellowman. Colleagues, is there any comments or questions at this time for Division of Community Development or Dr. Yellowman? Colleagues, if there's none, let's go on down to, I'm just going to go through the process and maybe go through 3 presentations, and then we'll go back to the floor. So let me go on down to Division of Economic Development, then Division of General Services, then I'll come back to the floor, colleagues. With that, good morning, Mr. Willie. Thank you for being on the line with us. At this time, I'll go ahead and turn the floor over to you.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Speaker. Honorable members of the 24th Nomination Council. This is JT Woolley with the Division of Economic Development. I am the Division Director, and I also have an established team that I'm working with, which includes what I call the American Rescue Plan team, formerly known as the CARES Act team within the Division of Economic Development. I also have my various offices that are within the division who bring their experience into the roles of our regional business developments, our project development, as well as our tourism and our small business development department. Each one of these offices have been very critical and crucial with us in developing what we had presented back in spring of this year to honorable members of the Naabik'íyáti committee. And as we have moved forward, have made some changes, drastic changes to our proposal, which we did submit a project list of about 29 plus projects to the Office of the President, Vice President that will be, I think, reviewed as we go on into the dialogue of economic projects here on Navajo that will have an impact. If honorable members can recall, the original plan did have some recommendations for tourism as well as destination sites for rural infrastructure development for the opportunity to bring economic development to communities identified through the pandemic era. And we wanted to be sure to meet those needs as we have advanced through these past couple of months. So we have made some critical changes that will bring more impact for our communities, whether it's bringing in infrastructure for future projects or whether it's supporting current projects throughout the regions of the Navajo Nation. Mr. Speaker, what I do have, and I'll provide in written language for you in regards to recommendations, doesn't highlight some of the ideals that were brought up from Dr. Yellowman Shitsui did speak to the procurement issues. Those are some things that we want to work through and accomplish because of the barriers that we did face under the CARES funds, of course, that was highlighted mostly based off of the timeframe that we were in. I am also on the other line with the Budget and Finance special meeting taking place, and I believe everybody else is as well. But we do know that there is language in there to reappropriate some of those funds back to programs such as ours. If honorable members can recall, we did have a $60 million allotment for use of grant funding for small businesses and artisans. We wish to continue that process, so we did submit recommendations to support that legislation as well as to redivert those funds back to the division so we can continue at that process. Just for the record as well, Mr. Speaker, we are working on the what is called the State Small Business Credit Initiative, or otherly known as the SSBCI. That recommendation is coming from available funds from the American Rescue Plan at the federal level. So I do have the team currently working on application. The application deadline has been extended a few times, but we are thankful to the SBA as well as Treasury and guidance in getting this application submitted. We did submit the letter of intent to participate in this program. Speaks to a lot of support for small businesses when it comes to startups as well as having a fund availability. Our biggest barrier that we know within businesses is that there's no available startup funds as well as those funds in order to leverage for funding or bonding capacities on behalf of small businesses. The division looks to be one of those outlets through the SSBCI and as well as also the Navigator program, which we are also submitting application for. We have been in collaboration with OMB who has been working with us on that application to submit our proposal to participate in that program, as well as the Navigator program. As we move forward, Mr. Speaker, the recommendations that we also do have include some amendments to the Navajo Business Opportunity Act. My supervisor in place right now, Mr. Nota Silversmith, has been having public sessions and hearings. We completed 2 so far since May, June, and now July. Within the next couple of weeks, we will have the final public hearing, which we're going to put together language on recommendations to amend the Navajo Business Opportunity Act in order for it to be favorable for our small businesses, private sector. That has been one of the concerns that many of our small business communities, particular to those within the Navajo Nation who have done or tried to do businesses with the Navajo Nation through the past decades, has identified as a barrier. And so I'm thankful to our Diné Chamber, as well as to Shiche, Mr. Al Henderson, Mr. John Begay, as well as to Mr. Derek Watchman, who have been instrumental in reaching out and participating in those public hearings with us. So we are in the process of the final end. The last public session will kind of finalize our plan for recommendations to submit to honorable members to review. And I want to also extend my gratitude to Honorable Edmund Yazzie for kind of being the champion with us on continuously asking us for updates, as well as reaching out, wanting to know where we are at on that process. Within the past few months, we've also been in various communities meeting with chapters as well as local businesses to find out what are we missing and what needs to be added to our overall proposal and recommendations. I know the legislation up at the BNF committee today speaks to most of those and identifying a central office such as the ARPA office in order for us to have as that central outlet for project development. As far as the grant side, we did submit that as well to public comment that we are in favor of reallocating those funds, and as well as looking to advance another program for artisan and business relief. As we move forward, the recommendations, as I have mentioned, we will put in writing and also submit to your office for the record. And then again, we did have received recommendations to make changes to our project list so that they are more feasible for us within a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year timeframe for economic impacts throughout the communities on Navajo, and how we can have a longer effect of the economic opportunities as well as impacts here throughout the nation. In addition to that, we have been in contact with various businesses as we have moved forward in strategizing the reopening of the Navajo Nation. As we have known, the reopening did happen last week with the parks. So we have been working with all of our tour companies that are registered through the division and where they are at, how much they have been impacted, and how much visitors they have seen within the past week. And we will be finalizing a report as well for honorable members to review. And of course, continuing our conversation as far as the economic impact here on Navajo. That's another area that we have been working to finalize with our partners of Change Labs and looking to develop a final product for you all to review as far as how COVID-19 has affected the Navajo economy and our further recommendations moving forward to kind of re-strategize how the nation looks to re-strategize its economy here on the nation. There are also some recommendations that we have brought forth, which will be included in my letter as far as the support for small businesses, those businesses registered with the Navajo Nation. It's understandable that throughout the entire United States, although state restrictions are being lifted, many of these businesses are still facing economic impacts. I have been keeping up to date with national, state, local news as far as how these openings are affecting them. And what we have done our analysis on is that that effect will also happen here on the nation, but will have a different impact because, as we know, majority of our consumers look to the border towns to consume their goods or services. And what we want to have is a trend effect that will actually reverse all of that thinking so that staying local is more beneficial for our communities, for our Navajo people do. And again, we've identified these prior to the pandemic, but with the pandemic coming and the lockdowns happening, it has brought more strategy or thinking to us to know that the local impacted projects are what will be important for our people, and then again booster the Navajo economy and keeping your dollars here on the nation, tax funds, and what have you. The recommendation that we will be submitting also includes what we were considering, what we want to call the business site leasing program. Those businesses registered with the Navajo Nation pay an annual fee to the Navajo Nation, a gradual guaranteed minimal annual rent. And this rent could be a barrier for some businesses because they're still trying to get caught up and reopen their doors. It's understandable that most businesses, when they open, day one of that business's reopening, they have to incur certain costs as they move forward, whether it's paying taxes, whether it's paying rental fees. Their most important fee that they pay is paying their employees. So bringing back the employees back on board, their insurance, everything that leads up to supporting a business's operation. And what we have been receiving in feedback is a lot of these businesses are continuing to face barriers when it comes to reopening their doors. And so in our recommendation, it does include another program that will allow the nation to fund those business site leases on behalf of these businesses within the Navajo Nation that pay some sort of fee or rent to the nation, or whether it's to some of our enterprises such as the Navajo Nation Shopping Centers Incorporated. So we would allow our businesses to kind of focus on what they need to really get back to a point of where they were comforted at before the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, majority of these small businesses had a savings and they had their operations and they were doing business as normal. When the pandemic hit, everything shut down. And so some businesses did not reopen. And as we advance forward, we're telling these businesses, well, now you have an opportunity to reopen. But through consultations with some of these entrepreneurs, we're finding out that it's difficult for them to reopen to how it was prior to the pandemic because they have to purchase additional safety barriers for their employees, for their consumers. They have to limit their hours of operation. We still have an occupancy limit within the nation of 50%. So we're still not at that comfort level just yet, although our surrounding states have lifted all restrictions and have come to a point where they've allowed full occupancy within their businesses. Some normal operations have returned back to where they were at, but they're just not the same. And it won't be like that. And it's forecast to not be like that for the next 5 to 10 years. So the effects of the pandemic will be longer lasting within the business sector, particularly here on Navajo, because we're so rural. And so to consume your immediate products, your abilities to travel seem to be more of the opportunity rather it is to stay local here on the nation, because we lack those services. We lack the locations here on the Navajo Nation. So therefore, the ARPA team took it under its initiative within these past couple of months to do more consultations with chapters as well as local leaders to change our plans so that we can have a better solidified plan to present to leadership as we move forward, and so that we can continue to support a lot of the economic growth within the nation in itself, advancing forward to have a longer term effect. So as we move forward, Mr. Speaker, we will be submitting those in writing, and we will be staying up to date with all of the legislations taking place as we start speaking to the use of the American Rescue Plan funds, and also again develop more recommendations as we move forward. In my view, the most important one has been the changes that we are looking to make to the Navajo Business Opportunity Act, which we are going to be finalizing within the next couple of weeks, and we will have that for leadership for review, and then maybe possibly entertain legislation to re-strategize how the Navajo Business Opportunity Act works for our private sector of the Navajo Nation. So that concludes my remarks this morning, Mr. Speaker, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Willie, and thank you very much for covering the basis. And thank you very much for going forward with sending that information over. I look forward to looking at that information, also dispersing that to members of the Navajo Nation Naabik'íyáti Committee. With that, colleagues, let me go ahead and go down to one more division, and then I'll go back to the floor. Is Division of General Services on the line?
Mr. Speaker, General Services is here.
With that, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the floor over to General Services.
Mr. Speaker, members of the committee, our exposure with the last process was mainly through the certain purchases that were required, that were funded and allocated to general services. What we're finding is that we need to somehow, and I'm sure you've heard it all before, streamline the contracting process and streamline the purchasing process. So those are the issues that we're running to even now post-COVID for the CARES funding. The one thing that we would like to bring to the attention, and I've mentioned it during our meetings, is that there are provisions within the ARPA funding for administrative costs. Some of the previous federal funding that has come out has related it to the indirect costs. However, the Navajo Nation currently doesn't have an approved indirect cost for fiscal year 2021. That lapsed at the end of the last year. So right now, the Navajo Nation really needs to bring its IDC rate current so that you have one in place for fiscal year 2022. The other is that if you take the controller's request of $130 million out of the $1.88 billion, you're allocating about 7% of your overall funding to administer the funds. However, you aren't really allocating any money to the divisions that are going to be doing this work. One thing that you might want to consider is that the expectation of divisions and division directors and all of the staff within the Navajo Nation is that the work continue while administering, closing out the CARES and working on the ARPA funding. However, divisions and departments, programs aren't allocated additional funds. So it's kind of like, packing on additional work to your worker and not getting them additional workers and saying, we want you to do this job and that job all for the same amount of pay. So you might want to consider if you're going to allocate administrative costs to the controller's office, that you also perhaps make a provision for the divisions that are hard impact. For general services, we're more a service-oriented division. A lot of the stuff that we get involved in is post-process. But I look at the other divisions that are really hit with a lot of funding that are still trying to get their work, their regular 8 to 5 Monday to Friday jobs completed, and then adding this additional task in. You have a huge amount that's going to community development. You have some going to transportation. You have some large chunk of it going to economic development. I'm sure that those divisions are really impacted hard and trying to stretch the personnel that do have to get all of this work done. So, Mr. Speaker, members of the committee, that might be something that you want to consider, that if you are going to do an allocation for controller's office to administer the finance part of it, there's also a lot of work that's being done at the division level to make sure that all of these funds are expended and are really expended in an accountable manner, trying to comply with all of the rules and regulations, both on the federal side and the tribal side, to provide these services to the Navajo Nation. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much for that information, spreading some of that information down. Mr. Patero, if you could send that information over to your concerns, I would greatly appreciate it, as that gives more clarity and maybe more clarity than my chicken scratch, trying to write down as quickly as possible what you were trying to say. I appreciate that. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the understanding. Also, being here with us here today, Mr. Patero. Colleagues, let me go back to the floor. Is there any comments or questions at this time right now for either the Division of Community Development, Division of Economic Development, or the Division of General Services?
Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Otto.
Thank you very much.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. I really like the what the new division director Tom Platero spoke about, the administration costs, the additional, and he is right that if we continue to utilize the current workforce who is supposed to provide the direct services to keep the nation running, but if we're going to push out contracts or need additional employees and things like that, we truly need to look at where and what is needed for additional administration support. That way, the direct services is not impacted, that is supposed to carry out through the main comprehensive or through the year. And would like to see if the division could bring that up and see what their need is. This not to throw a undetermined amount, but I see so this kids to come up with a dialogue, or come up with a number. I think that will help the programs, and that will subject to the additional need of critical the other is that we just have to be mindful that all of our expenditures has to be related to the recovery, not the prevention. So out of the recovery, how and what do we fund, and what falls under the term for recovery? So, for instance, under general services, Tom Platero's office, what would fall under recovery? Would cleaning and sanitizing and disinfecting a tribal building fall under recovery? Or is that under Title V, under the mitigate COVID? And all of these other programs has to think about them to make sure that we are within the recovery of COVID. The other is that, yes, I really would like to see what type of a housing plan or strategy is put in place for the Navajo Nation overall for housing. And I would really like to see if we could try to at least get some of those homes that need housing out there. And the G-SHIT units, the other day, RDC approved the Indian housing plan, and you know, in a way, you just had to approve it because these dollars are granted to the nation. But NHA did not build one home in 2020. It's a year ago, and yet this year they received about $68 million. And I see manager about one day, and we allow NHA to pick up these dollars on behalf of the nation, but they're not really putting a dent in the housing field. So with Shanella Pearl, Dr. Pearl Yellowman, I'm really interested in the housing aspect and I know your plan is probably something that's developed to be across the board. Koho one area is that, multiple homes or multiple families in one household is about COVID to the Yego, this way. Maybe looking at possibly going through and purchasing homes on wheels, mobile homes, and we could address and get the individuals that has approved home site leases at this time, so that we could order those mobile units, whether it's a 2-bedroom trailer and 3-bedroom trailer, whatever it is, and that's something that they can be pulled on site, and the family can move in right away, and the keys can be turned over to them, and then the infrastructure aspect will be a whole nother discussion again. But housing is something that I really would like to see on with the American Rescue Plan. I know with the economic development, as Mr. J.T. Willie indicated, to re-implement the artisan and the business plan. And he was speaking to the dollars that were reverted back to the amount that 60 million was allocated, and hardship. So that amount of whatever was reverted back, I do agree. If we can get that amount, that particular amount, what was reverted back, to finish out that initiative, because our own Navajo businesses were even pushed aside. I'm going to tell you guys this. And we're told that, well, you owe the Navajo Nation money, so you don't apply, or you don't qualify. And what business? Tell me what business does not owe anybody money? In order to run a business, you have to owe somebody in order to run a business. And I guarantee you, all of our business on the Navajo Nation, they're all in debt. Every day there's a debt running, and whatever comes through the books as a profit to their, they try to pay their bills, they try to pay their taxes, and pay their lease fees and all these things. And I see this is supposed to try to provide, my gosh, it's called the American Rescue Plan. These dollars are going to be geared to rescue those businesses. No, you don't qualify, or you owe the Navajo Nation this much money, and so forth. And I'm sure this is a business that's established in Tuba City. I had a business owner talk to me about that. The Navajo Nation, which so I had to release my employees. So, this dollars would at least save those employees that he released. affected families out there. But chin does it hello. I need but chin is that not so things like that. And I guess that's an administrative decision from the current administration to not, or to pick and choose who receive these dollars, and really but they have people work for them, and I'm sure there's other businesses across the Navajo Nation that were turned away like that. If there's one, and this is to the city, Nego, why did they push me away? I'm a voting Navajo citizen also, you know. The couple of hours, not midnight, go in the audit division of economic development email that they let you know about the award letter, and then the expiration happened on the time lapse to revert the monies back to the hardship accounts. So into the city, you know, some of my business people into the city, they were treated like that. And I really hope that economic development does not treat any other business individuals like that across the nation. Maybe it's just because they're in Tuba City. Addition on delegates really don't hurt. It really doesn't hurt to ask and speak to your business community because of how they were treated or how their paperwork process were going through and things like that. And I got these two businesses input on it, and I think that's wrong. But again, it's an administrative decision, and the executive branch, I really hope that Mr. Woolley, you try to reach out to those businesses that were denied our Navajo citizens and give them an opportunity to try to be rescued in this American Rescue Plan that was allocated to the Navajo Nation.
Thank you, Anbada. So that, colleagues, any other comments or questions at this time for either Division of Community Development, Division of Economic Development, or Division of General Services? Honorable Stewart, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, speakers, Chair, Auto committee members, on the line, Saturn, Auto division directors, Auto Isnos Agi, across the nation, world wide web for this session of Naabik'íyáti. I know that today's session is related towards our small businesses and how to make improvements on the funding for them. I want to say that, through the first one, I believe it was a learning experience with the CARES, because that one was rushed through. And it's more, there's more planning that was done into this one from what I have seen, what I have been asking questions about, and the plans on how to disperse and how to use and assist our small businesses. Because there is a process of just similar to the first one. I think that continue to work and support our local businesses, just like Shazan Ash said, Acho, to listen to our local businesses and see what needs to be done, then I think we can continue to make sure that they get the funding, especially with what happened with this hardship, this past hardship where we didn't have that many that applied till the last minute, because all these years, this is something that the Navajo Nation had never received funds for. And so, I think that with that, we need to look at that and then, see how we can support these things and make sure that things are there to happen and to assist our divisions in that way. So I support that the changes that are going to be done and the implementation that's going to be forwarded. I think that's something that we could all move forward on to support these divisions in that manner with this next round of funding. So I just wanted to share that much. Then thank you for the divisions for the reports and the updates that you provide us, whether it be individually or as a committee. But I believe that these reports come in real handy when it comes to us deciding what we need to do. But as leadership, we need to also make sure that we try to help the best way that we can, not only our businesses and our community members, but also the divisions and the departments as well. Thank you. From Rough Rock.
Thank you very much, Honorable Stewart. With that, colleagues, any other comments or questions for Mr. Willie or Dr. Yellowman or Mr. Platero, overseeing CERT, General Services, Economic Development, or Community Development?
Mr. Chair, Speaker.
Oh, Honorable Eugene So.
هلا يا شهوني اليوم هو الشيء إنه أو شيء انتهت وش أخذ اللي تأيده إنه زين أنا هم كان هلا so إيوه بعد أنا بيكن دسي كون ليا يا هذا بتشين بعد أخذ كده يا كوي نانت في نانت نحن هلا نحكي I believe there are some, before I requested housing across the Navajo Nation, where there is no string attached. We can use this ARPA money now again, or the other CARES Act, regarding to making houses out there for to people that are has no house, homeless. It's really hurt to see people without no house and they're just staying at their relatives or their mom, still with their mom or their sisters or brothers, all in one area. Still like that. I don't know when we're ever going to change that, but I wish we could just use the whole ARPA money and give everybody a house that was over 18 years of age with water and restroom and electricity and broadband nearby so they can be up to date. Well, what I would use, I would have used the money that way if it was mine. Just get everybody a house. So, but we do need it out there. It seems that there's a lot of strings attached to these kind of funds. Somehow I feel that the Congress know about these regulations that we have. They know it's going to be hard for us to use it. So they'll just try to give it the money to us to see what we do with it. And we run around over here and trying to figure it out. In regards to the business, I was wondering now, like, let's say a Holiday Inn, how much are the Holiday Inn of the residents helping the Holiday Inn in Chinle or any other motels that are named? There are, I don't know who they belong to, but are they also helping our business on the Navajo Nation with some funds besides the ARPA we're trying to get, funded with these? I don't know what we call small business too. I always figured that I thought small business was where it says maybe Begay's burgers or Sochi's ribs or whatever. And I thought those are small business. The one that's named after us and we're the one that's running it with our own Navajo beef or mutton. That's how I thought those were the small business. But it seems that all that business out there seems to be like a Burger King or McDonald's or Taco Bell or Church's Chicken or KFC, etc. Are they all belong to us, or those guys that that owns the KFC also putting some money in there? That's I was just thinking about it. Just outright thinking, do they have to? You know, with the money that we got with the art pile, where we should use it for us, Navajo nations. And this case, speaker should say, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I just feel like a small business would say Yazi's restaurant, then Begay's motel. I don't know, Sunny's Hilton Inn. I mean, big Hilton Inn again. So anyway, those are the things that I think about. I thought those are small business, and those are what the reservation was for, to sustain ourselves in a mechanical pursuit language, and with our own way of sustaining our own way of life on the Navajo Nation. But we do run business for other people on the Navajo Nation, and seems I don't know how much money they're taking from us off the reservation, or we getting all of it, or we getting is the Holiday Inn also belong to Navajo Nation? That's a question I always try to answer myself, but I don't have anything. Maybe Mr. Willie would understand and let me know who Holiday Inn belongs to, or is it belongs to Mr. Garcia? They used to own a station there a long time ago down in Chinle, and there was a trading post that was there. Now it became a Holiday Inn. So I don't know if Garcia's family ever owned it, or do they still own part of it? That's what I'm thinking too. So any of this case, all Nagi case or where the eyes, voice, and the ears for the people. You see, case, and just to make it short, I just want to let you know what my grandpa used to say. She'd say, they'll say, you don't know how he'll say, what's the problem? You're not fixing that. Then say, he'll pick up your hand and say, in that stuck, huh? Cut 30 joints, about 15 on both hands. So that's what he used to tell me. And then you got a brain on you. It's case, and you got eyes and you got ears. Those ears are not for decoration. Those are for you to hear with. I don't thought, oh no, there isn't any. Not 14th generation. That's what brought you here. You're all full of everything that can fix it, and just do it. I don't know where those things are going now, but I feel that I think that's where we're at now. We're trying to figure things out, but we have all the ingenuity, all the know-how, and all the stuff that's upstairs in our mind to fix it. So that's what you all are doing now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi, colleagues. Any other comments or questions for the branch division directors from Community Development, Economic Development, and General Services this time? Let me go back to Dr. Yellowman, Mr. Willie, or Ms. Patero. Do you have any final comments at this time? If not, then we can continue on. Floor is yours.
Speaker Damon, this is Douglas Capitan. I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. J.T. Willie.
Mr. Capitan, I'm on the line too.
Okay. I'll go ahead and let you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Chair, honorable members of the committee. I do appreciate the feedback and questions in regards to the program. As Mr. Honorable So mentioned, is addressing the needs of our businesses here on Navajo, in that the opportunity for us to meet those needs again is our priority. We do have the lists ready to go. We do have those individuals that were given an award, but the award was retracted due to the reversion of the funds to the hardship assistance. There's about 21 of those applicants already identified. I do know that their dollar amount might change because of the extended time frame that we have incurred. The other part is the applicants that did not have the window of opportunity to reapply for the program or to amend a return application. They are in the 2,000 plus. So those are also identified through our program database. And so therefore they are also a priority for us. And then of course, the other individuals who had opened an application or started an application, but did not submit because it already had passed the November 20th deadline. That's also another priority for us. There is also us bringing on additional staffing. We want to be able to cater into the communities so that we can meet the needs of those individuals not able to access us through technical abilities. That was a concern of honorable members of the council because of the uncertainty of the times with the vaccine and the high numbers we were facing. A lot of our staff had stayed grounded. But now with the moving forward, where we are at today, with the vaccine arriving and the numbers been at low numbers, we have the ability to stay safe through community outreach with one-on-one consultations within the next couple of months once we get the program going again. The other part is going to be some consultations we're going to have with our Department of Justice because of the Navajo language, Navajo Nation's language in the codes regarding some of the stipulations when it comes to debts owed to the nation. I wholeheartedly agree with Honorable So that we should not be restricting some of these businesses because they do owe certain entities such as tax, such as the Navajo Nation, or what have you. So therefore, because these are relief funds, they should be openly offered to individuals, particularly in those in business. We do need to have that conversation before we start going live with the program, because I am aware of those individuals who were not eligible for the program because they had a identified debt and settlement with the nation. But I need to get further clarification from Department of Justice on how we can maneuver through that past experience that the business owner has had with the nation's coffers when it was under the BIDF program or other funds that the nation had allotted for business opportunities in the past. As we move forward, again, our program was designed to bring that relief. We did get it to 4,000 plus applicants. We do want to meet the needs of the additional ones that still need assistance from this program, and that's what it was designed for. Because we had the restrictions put in place of the criteria, we were not able to get more funding beyond a $60,000 ceiling. With the amended changes, we'll be able to meet those needs a lot higher because those businesses have incurred expenses beyond a $60,000 window. So therefore, we want to also meet the needs of those individuals, particularly those in the tourism or tourist industry. As we move forward, to answer Honorable Eugene So's questions and feedback highlights small businesses. Every business on the nation within the communities is majority small business. Some of those small businesses take on franchises, and those franchises are known as, for example, Chevron. They're known as the Holiday Inn, the Hilton brand, Starbucks, what have you, Bashas. Those are franchises, and so they sell off the franchise, and some Navajo-owned entities take on the franchise to run as their own. Some franchises have offered assistance to their businesses that franchise and brand the name. However, that's very limited because of the corporate standpoint. It takes care of the main corporate brand wherever they are located throughout the United States, and then they look at their franchise thereafter. But its majority of 100% of the responsibility falls back on the business owner themselves, who decide to buy a franchise and run it as their own, whatever corporation they decide to create and brand a franchise under that entity name as a small business owner. We are aware of those individuals, and they also are part of our demographic of small businesses here on the nation. They've just taken their steps a little bit higher. Some of those entrepreneurs own more than one business or franchise, whether it's in the food industry, the gasoline industry, the oil industry, what have you, and some in the hospitality hotel industry, which is managed by a family of entrepreneurs who have taken on purchasing franchises for the benefit of community growth and job expansion. And of course, there's those true small businesses, as Honorable Eugene So spoke to, like Sosie's Food Stand. Those are independently owned businesses, wholly owned by the business owner themselves. So therefore, all expenses are managed by them. They are also on our demographic because they did apply for funds under the first round of funds that we were offering through the CARES allotment. And they are also, a majority of them have not received relief. So therefore, we're looking to bring them assistance as well moving forward. So as we cater this program, it's maneuvering its abilities to be expended to 100% because it's full intention and need, and getting majority of these businesses back on track where they were at prior to the pandemic. So as we move forward, we do plan to work with these businesses continuously, and we have been. A lot of our regional offices have been in consultation with these small businesses on the status and where they're at and how things are going as of day one of reopening. Did they even close at all because they were an essential business? And those that were shut down and were not essential, and since they've been reopened, where have they been at up to this point, and what continued guidance can we offer them maneuvering forward? So therefore, I'm looking forward to being successful in becoming an SSBCI outlet as well as a navigator so under the SBA and under the Treasury Department, because that will be an added financial capacity for some startups to reallocate funds, or also to even start up a business here on the nation and have some capacity for bonding and financial capacities for outside financial institutions for some of these businesses to expand their businesses even further beyond where it has been. Our biggest issue has been that these financial institutions don't come onto the nation because of jurisdictional issues or sovereignty matters that are a concern of these banks. So therefore, we want to have that leverage on our side. And of course, our Navajo CDFI, as well as the BIDF program under the Division of Economic Development, have been that instrumental tool. Unfortunately, BIDF has been in its current sanction status. However, that's also another conversation that I can have with honorable members. I did update my oversight committee on where we are at. We are finally in the final stages of getting that program back up and going with the return of a CFO and an economist under the Division of Economic Development. We have recently finalized the job description for the CFO, and then we have also finalized the job recruitment for the economist. So by October 1st, I hope to have a staff member on board to be that consultation to honorable members as we entertain projects and ideas moving forward for the nation's economy. So, Mr. Chair, Speaker Damon, I'll turn it back over to you. And thank you for the feedback and questions. My team is all on the line. We are taking our notes and making sure that we can address all the needs and concerns. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Willie. Thank you very much for your presentation. And again, thank you. I look forward to that, few of the recommendations in writing too as well. And I think that's something that we need to present to as well, maybe in a specific to uh, Department of Justice and Office of Legislative Counsel, if there's any kind of immediate action that needs to be placed or recommendations that we can change immediately before any of these processes begin in order for us to draw down the funds so that it can be done immediately through any kind of legislative format. So again, thank you, Mr. Willie. That, colleagues, if there's no other further questions, I do have Division of Health, Division of Natural Resources, and Division of Social Services next. So let me go on to Division of Health.
Speaker, I have a question for Mr. Willie.
Hello?
I have a question.
Who's this? Honorable Elmer Begay?
Yeah, this is Doug again.
Thank
you, Speaker. Mr. JT Willie, Cecilia, good morning. I have a question regarding I have still about 3 people, the applicants, they're still inquiring about their small business that they submitted, but they never got that assistance. So right now they're still responding to some emails. They want to know that if there's going to be any other, if they never got the assistance, how did you go about it? Is there a way that they can still seek for assistance? They got all the paperwork and everything, but I guess they're more like transporters. So somewhere they'll be submitting all the information, but then your office would say that they're still lacking some papers. So they fax up they emailed it or scanned it, everything, but they didn't go through the process. So they still want to know if there still can be get assistance. How do you go about it? Do I submit you all the information emailing you? They started to send it to me, but I told them that don't send it to me. So how do we go about it, Mr. Willie? Thank you.
Mr. Willie, let me turn the floor back over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, Honorable Speaker. Otto Shanai, Honorable Elmer Begay. Yes, please send those right over to us. We do have an email already established as well. It's navoeconomy@navo-nsn.gov, or even to my email, which is a lot easier to find in the directory, and we'll be able to address those. More than likely, if they were in the process already, they are identified on our list, and so we have those applicants ready to go to receive funding once we get reallotted funds. Since we've been notified of the legislation that was recently introduced and passed through the Budget and Finance, the team has been contacting all of those applicants to get them ready, because we want to be able to start pushing out those funds within a timely manner that's respectable, because of the time frame that we've been facing right now with the duration of the funds that were allotted from the division. But of course, those are some of the mechanisms that within government we have to work with, and we want to be able to succeed through some of those channels a lot faster, like we did the first time around, so that our goals are lined up as we move forward. And so it would be best to send those inquiries to myself and to the Division of Economic Development, because as I said, I have the team on the line, so we can also reach out to you so you can send them directly to us, Shania. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Willie. That, colleagues, there's no more questions. Let's go ahead and continue on, moving on down. I do have Division of Health next. Is there anybody on from Division of Health?
Good afternoon, Speaker. This is Dr. Jim with the Department of Health.
Yes, Dr. Joe Jim. Good afternoon. Floor is yours.
Okay, Kehatnan, thank you for that, Honorable Speaker. Also, 24th Council Committee members for this opportunity to share information related to the ARPA plans for the Department of Health. We do have ARPA dollars that we received through the Indian Health Service avenue. We haven't received it in, I guess, from the Navajo area office, so that should be around $25 million that we'll be receiving to address COVID, water infrastructure, lost revenue that is expected. So we're still working with OMB and Navajo area office to get that process with the department under our contract as a Title I contractor with the Navajo area office. There are additional funding that we requested for under ARPA, working with Chief of Staff and the group there under the executive effort in relation to requesting for detox and outpatient centers, as well as improvements to senior centers. I know there was discussion already where chapters are supporting senior center improvements in construction, but we looked through the list that was provided by chapters, along with how to repair and maintain some of our regular operations expense under ARPA. So there is a clear separation of requests from the senior centers. And then also we did submit some projects related to wellness centers as well, and some of the communities that don't have wellness centers. And so that is the only request from the Department of Health under the Navajo Nation that we submitted our senior center improvements, detox, and outpatient centers, as well as wellness centers. So that would be the end of my oral report to you, Speaker, and the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information, Dr. Joe Jim, and thank you very much for continued efforts that you're working on too as well. Check the Navajo people. With that, let me go on down to the Division of Natural Resources. Division of Natural Resources. ENR going twice. ENR going 3 times. With that, let's continue on down. Division of Social Services. Division of Social Services. There are none. Let's go continue on down. Navajo Nation Land Department. I know that we did hear numerous recommendations from the Land Department, and we did get those in writing too as well at the last meeting. So I think we did note that they were okay, that they didn't 100%. How about last but not least, Navajo Department of Transportation, Mr. Garrett Silversmith? If there's anything
Good
else, I know
afternoon.
that you did recommend, you and your team did add on your recommendations, and we do have those. And we did present that before the individuals who were sponsoring the recommendation to build the fund management for ARPA. So I don't know if you have anything else to add on to that. Navajo Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon, Speaker Damon. This is Garrett Silversmith. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, Mr. Silversmith.
Thank you, sir. Would you like? I'll go directly into my presentation. So thank you,
Thank you very much.
Speaker Damon.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Damon, and honorable members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council, all our colleagues and partners who are on the call, participants of this call. I like this. This is Garrett Silversmith again, Division Director for Navajo Division of Transportation. Our division provided a very brief PowerPoint presentation for today's discussion on issues and recommendations of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. The second slide is just some topics here that I wanted to share with you. That I want to share with you. There's going to be 5 topics here that I wanted to discuss here. The first one is going to be strategic opportunities, our implementation plan, and benefits. Fourth is strategic overview and issues/recommendations. Then finally, some photos. So the first one is, I know this is the intent of this afternoon's or today's work session is to provide some recommendations, but prior to that, I just want to give the listening audience a brief overview of what we've done and what we've completed and what's current, that's current in process as these ARPA funds have arrived to the Navajo Nation. But the strategic opportunities for the Navajo Nation as a whole is just to maximize and capitalize on this opportunity. Second thing is addressing transportation infrastructure needs with our ARPA funds that we have that has been specifically devoted for transportation needs. And the third one is the opportunities here that lie before us is that we want to respond to community needs here. And their needs are always constant, and we recognize that. So our response has to be respectful in that regard to the needs out there for our communities and our chapters. And ultimately, finally, we want to provide a safer transportation system for all our travelers. The next slide is for everyone's overview again, as I lead up to my recommendations for this ARPA plan is, here's a quick glimpse of how we are planning to strategically expend our transportation funds. As we know, we received over $2 billion in Navajo Nation. So preliminarily, the Navajo Nation's transportation infrastructure needs are the amounts that we got from this whole amount of ARPA funds. We were temporarily given or tentatively given $200 million. So we split it up into 3 phases here. The first phase is, well, before that is we want to split up this $200 million of funds into 4 components, 4 major components, which is pavement preservation. We want to devote $70 million to that, which is crack sealing, pothole patching, restriping of yellow and white lines, maybe some milling and some asphalt overlays, some fog seals. So that's one of our first components that we want to address there. The second one is it's called new pavement construction. So each community has requested in the past new routes within their respective communities, meaning that new routes that haven't been paved yet or there's no bridges. So we want to devote $38 million to that pursuit there. The third component is bridge preservation. we are going to identify $15 million towards bridge preservation. Presently, in the Navajo Nation's inventory system, we have 179 bridges, but we cannot address each of those. So with $15 million, we want to at least devote some of these funds toward the repair and upgrades to about 7 or 8 of those bridges. And finally, the last component is dirt roads. Dirt roads, we plan to target $77 million of our funds toward that purpose there. And with these dirt roads, we'd like to do subgrade preparation, replace or add new culverts, gravel laydown, add some soil stabilizer, or chip seal these dirt roads. So, of course, if you total all of this amount, it's $200 million. And this is something that, not something, but this is what we've been sharing the Nez Liza administration to some of the chapters we have visited. Thus far, we probably reached out to 25, 30 chapters already, and it's a huge undertaking, but that's what we have been doing, and this is what I've been sharing with each of the communities thus far that we have visited in the last 2 months. Of course, some benefits of what we're doing here, and this applies equally throughout the Navajo Nation, but specifically for our transportation system, is that we're going to repair our damaged transportation assets. Secondly, is we're going to elevate the safety aspect and elements of a transportation system. And once we eventually complete these needs and repairs, long term, we should see some increased economic development. And then finally, and one of the most important aspects is we're going to be addressing each of these routes that we're going to address are identified as school bus routes. Finally, one of the main intent of today's work session is to identify some current issues and recommendations that we will be presently facing. The first one is limitation of funds. 200 million is not adequate enough. And as I've been visiting these chapters, like I said, in the last 2 months, ideally, realistically, the transportation needs of the Navajo Nation are over $7 billion. So the amount that we receive, $2 billion, times that by 3 or 4, and that's the true amount that the Navajo Nation needs to address our needs. And of course, the recommendation there is just to pursue additional funds that we can devote to our nation's needs as far as transportation deficiencies. The next one, B, is community chapter requests. And that's not an issue. That's just a situation where we are continually receiving chapter requests, and that's fine. And the recommendation there is the obvious one is we can continue with these ARPA meetings. So we are presently doing that, like I mentioned, for the last 2 months. And in fact, this Friday, we have 2 more chapter visits we're going to be doing, and that's the communities of Lecce and Cameron. So the first one will be Friday morning at 9 a.m. We'll be visiting with Lecce chapter. And this Friday afternoon, we'll be meeting with the community of Cameron chapter at 2 p.m. So again, we'll be sharing our American Rescue Plan, strategic plans with each of these chapters. The next item is strategic selection of projects. Thus far, we received over close to 200 projects in total for various requests from each of our communities. And this amounted to close to $750 million worth of requests total. But as I mentioned in my second slide or third slide, we are going to be limited to $200 million. So we got to strategically, that's a recommendation. It's an obvious recommendation, but it's an important one, is we need to strategically select $200 million worth of projects from the total amount of 750 million projects that we have received. Each project that we receive is not going to be funded. So I truly wish we could fund each of these projects, but our limitation of funds will prevent that. The next item is D, remaining and continuing needs of the Navajo Nation as far as transportation. And the next one is just an obvious recommendation is pursue additional funds. Like I mentioned, our total need across the Navajo Nation as far as transportation needs is near $7.5 billion. And it's wonderful that we received at least $200 million, but realistically, like I said, we need much more than that. And we're going to continue to advocate to our Washington, D.C. leaders and locally here within the states of Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. Finally, there's one of the last recommendations is we have our existing federal and tribal laws and regulations. The first recommendation there is to revise our BIA environmental clearance requirements. As many of you delegates know, the Nez-Leiser administration has created two separate but related transportation white papers. And with this document, we've identified and we've recommended our needs as far as the changing of BIA's regulations for their environmental compliances. Presently, I'll give you an example. If we want to construct a federal funded project, we have to meet two requirements, not one, but two requirements. One of them is BIA's requirements. The second one is the Federal Highway Administration requirement. So two different separate sets of requirements that we have, documentation that we have to achieve before we construct a federal highway, a federal funded project. And to us, that is seriously a situation there where we need to revise that approach there. And that's where thus far we've met with the Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Buttigieg, Secretary of Interior Holland. We also met in correspondence with our present Bureau of Indian Affairs Regional Director too, Mr. Holliday. So all the key individuals, we've been trying to just keep them educated as far as our needs, our recommendations on changing federal laws there as far as environmental clearances. The second recommendation is to revise the BIA right-of-way requirements. Presently, many of our projects the scope of work is to complete new construction of a particular route, and that route needs a right-of-way. Our first thought is, why do we need a right-of-way? These are federal trust land, and why does the federal government want a right-of-way on their own land as far as a trust aspect of it? And that's tied to this recommendation. Secondly, is the right-of-way requirements need to be lessened. Presently, it takes much longer than, it averages over 1.5 years to sometimes 3 years to get a right-of-way on a single 5-mile segment of roadway. And that is much too long. 1.5 to 3, 4, 5 years to get a right-of-way. Something has to be done there. And that's why we see some funds within our nation's accounts that we have received 1 year ago, 2 years ago, that's still there because we can't spend them until we meet these right-of-way requirements and needs. The last recommendation is and you've heard that from others, my colleagues, our division directors, is we need to revise our Navajo Nation's 164 and procurement process. Right now, Navajo DOT we are currently actively on top of 149 projects. That's how much projects that we are presently overseeing right now. So with the forthcoming ARPA projects, which is over 200, that's going to easily double our workload. We're going to probably have at least 300 projects. So, and we need to address the internal Navajo Nation's procurement and 164 process here to expedite and quickly process these projects. So those are the recommendations I wanted to share, and there's many more, but these are the large ones, the larger type of scope projects that are recommendations that I wanted to share. if we can address each of these, it'll result into what you see now on the screen, some of our past and current projects that we are successfully implementing now. One in the Chinle Agency, N12 that we're presently doing on the screen, and then one that we just recently completed in the Western Agency in Kaibito. Another one that we recently completed in the Eastern Agency in the Little Water. Next slide is one that we also recently completed in the Northern Agency, the Kaibito project. And another photo on the bottom right is a present project, a bridge replacement project that we are doing in Lupton in our Fort Defiance Agency. So Speaker Damon and honorable members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council, Naabik'íyáti Committee, and my colleagues and all listeners on the call there, this is a brief presentation on our status of our ARPA projects and our recommendations that we'd like to, in our preference, to see. Thank you, Speaker Damon.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Silversmith. Thank you very much for those recommendations again and add-ons. And most importantly, I thank you for that, because that's the information that we're going to need in order to break down some of these barriers. So again, thank you to you and your team. With that, colleagues, are there any comments or questions at this time? We'll go back to the floor for Dr. Jill Jim or Navajo Department of Transportation. Madam Chair, good afternoon. For the record, we have Madam Chair Charles Newton, Honorable Carl Slater, Honorable Wanika, Honorable Elmer Begay, Honorable Paul Begay, here in the
Otto
chamber. Yes. Honorable Otto So, floor is yours.
Yeah, Mr. Silversmith, yeah, could present in law. So, you indicated about chapters making requests for road improvements and so forth. Has this program ever decided to directly appropriate those dollars directly to the chapters so that the chapters could somewhat try to start their process on their own, so that they can start their own right-of-way process and working with NDOT as a guiding, as a technical program, so that maybe one day, I believe that's why what the chapters were pretty much designed for, was to be one of the clearinghouse to hold some of the resources and administer some of the projects at the local level, just like how the state infuses money directly to the municipalities or directly into the county. Has NDOT ever thought of that avenue so that a lot of that stringent requirement and so forth is not on NTUA or in NDOT, so that the chapters can work on those projects from the local level? Have you guys ever explored that possibility? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. With that, let me go on down to Honorable Chairman Ed Binyazi. Then I'll go back to presenters. Chairman?
Yeah, Speaker, thank you, and also members of the council. My comment question would be to Mr. Silversmith. Sir, I tried to email regarding the funds, and but I am requesting help with the right-of-way regarding the funding for County Road 51 in Thibodaux, half a mile. McKinley County stated that the commissioner, Billy Moore, that if we can just get the right-of-way, they can come in and chip seal this road. So we need your help, Mr. Silversmith. I don't know if my emails are not going through. I know you're probably busy, but I'm reaching out for help on the right of way. That's all I have, Speaker. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. That, colleagues, any other comments for Dr. Jill Jim or Mr. Garrett Silversmith? We'll see you. With that, if there's not, let me go back to presenters. If there's any final comment from Dr. Jill Jim or a response from Mr. Silversmith.
Thank you, Speaker Damon. This is Garrett Silversmith.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Delegate Otto So, for that question and comments that you had mentioned earlier here. So, to my response to the Honorable Delegate Otto So is that I commend you and your local chapter there for this thought. And yes, it was previously discussed here, and I recall a conversation where we had, not recently, but prior to what you had suggested here. And again, I commend you for this and the chapter for taking the initiative and looking long-term as far as what the chapter can provide as far as assistance and, just direct oversight and direct administering and managing of their own projects. And that's and I commend you because that's a huge, large task in itself to do something like that on top of what their normal responsibilities are there for the local chapter and communities. So it's a large task, but it's nothing that's not impossible. But this would require another further discussion, Honorable Delegate. So in person between yourself, and of course, us and your community members, and we can pursue additional avenues for this option. But we can pursue additional avenues and options on going forward with this request. Additionally, on top of that, I'll give you an example. If we're gonna say we have a new construction project in Tuba City, in the surrounding community of Tuba City, and it's a federal funded project, funded by the federal government, our program agreement with Federal Highway Administration that was approved back in 2016 specifically states that the Navajo Nation, Navajo DOT must be at the lead managing and administering this program. And it can't be, and that includes the funds, and that can't be transferred to another chapter or another entity. But again, that's a discussion there, Delegate Otto So, is that we can have with Federal Highway Administration and see what other options that we can pursue. But again, in our Federal Highway Administration U.S. DOT program agreement, it does say that that the funds must stay here with the nation's identified tribal entity. But again, I like the idea, and it's always great to get additional help for your chapter to pursue some smaller tasks. For instance, the assistance that we need for environmental compliances, preliminary design, preliminary planning. Those are some items that your chapter could do, and that would alleviate and somewhat lessen our workload here for Navajo DOT. So again, that's a good thought there, Delegate Otto So. Responding to Honorable Delegate Yazzie there, and I haven't received a recent email from you, sir, but I know we brought this discussion up when we were in Peru about a month ago, and I know you did bring it up, and I'll follow up with my staff on that and see where we are as far as getting the request that you need for assistance to achieve and secure for right-of-way for County Road 151 there for McKinley County. So again, I'll follow up with my staff and see where we are But again, thank you for forwarding that request to us, Honorable Delegate Yazi. I'll return it back to you, Honorable Speaker Damon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Silversmith. That, colleagues, are there, go back to the floor. Is there any other comments or questions at this time? If there's none, thank you very much, Mr. Silversmith, and very much Dr. Jill Jim for presenting before the Naabik'íyáti committee. And we look forward to that information. If you have it written, Dr. Jill Jim, and appreciate that. Again, thank you both of you before coming for the Naabik'íyáti committee. That, colleagues, let's go ahead and continue on down. I do have one more presenter, and that's Indian Health Services. IHS. Anybody on from IHS?
This is Vice Chair Smith. I have a question.
With that, anybody on from IHS? Going twice.
Speaker, this is Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith, I'm calling for Indian Health Services.
Okay.
I can come back to you. Went 3 times. No one on from IHS. Vice Chair Smith, I'm come back to you.
Well, thank you, Speaker. I was hoping to ask a question to Garrett Silversmith, but I guess we're moving on. I'll just call him. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, is Mr. Silversmith still on the line? Let me check. I don't think Mr. Silversmith is still on the line, Vice Chair Smith.
I'm still here, sir.
Okay. Mr. Silversmith, I don't know if you have time, but I think we have one more question from Vice Chair Smith. Vice Chair Smith?
Thank you, Speaker, and Naabik'íyáti committee members, those that are listening in. Thank you, National Department of Transportation, Mr. Garrett Silversmith. My question is, as you well know, 9402 has been the longest and discussed topic, and it's still the same. I'm hoping that ARPA will be considered in that 9402. That road is one of the worst roads. It's a 20-mile stretch. And I know you're aware of it. The reason why I'm saying that is because right now construction is going on with the bridge, and that bridge is going to be state of the art. And it's just a short, I'd say a real short segment of that improvement. But that's a welcome improvement, a big improvement to have that bridge put across there. But to continue the road and to improve it, we're looking to having it an all-purpose road. I know that you did a couple miles of it, and it went to the allotted lands, and it stopped from there. But we're looking for the whole 9402, going from Lupton through Houck and on down to Sanders, to be all-purpose road, whether it's paved, chip sealed. The reason being is there are a lot of folks that use that road, not only the folks that live on that south side of the Rio Perco, relatives, people that travel, commute, and buses do travel through there when it's school. Emergency, law enforcement, EMS, fire, rescue, CHRs, just to name a few. We're really looking towards that, and I'm hoping that ARPA will also look at the fact of hiring a right-of-way agent to collect names or collect signatures on those allotted lands, because there's a lot of areas that are west of Allentown out to Sanders, and that's a big holdup. If we get those right-of-ways signatures, then BIA was at the time, Sharon Pinto, being the regional director at the time, she was saying, if we can gather that and get those things taken care of, we could get that road paved. And she was looking to even ask the federal government to help with that road. And now that we have Orlando Teller at the Washington place, we could use his help in getting this facilitated. Not only that portion of that road, there's also other roads that are really needing improvement, such as the road from the NTUA Transwestern to the NTUA power line that goes by the Good News Mission north of I-40, Pine Springs turnoff, all the way out towards Ortega Road. That needs to be improved on too. That's one of the rough roads, and that's being used a lot because we have NHA folks that live on that side. And in my areas too, of the Klagetoh, Wide Ruins, there's roads that need improvement. So I'm hoping that those roads will be considered with this 1.8 billion to get those roads worked and improved upon. And I know we bought the Iron Wolf, and Klagetoh is requesting that, and we've been waiting patiently. They even passed a resolution on that road that needs to be worked on. So those are my questions. If they're going to be Iron Wolf be available for that to help facilitate the road up that way. 9402, hiring agents to collect names and get the right-of-way squared away so that we can improve on that. Thank you, Speaker. Those are my questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I guess just a right-of-way comment. I guess that's a strategic issue everywhere. And in the presentation, I know that some of the right-of-way that you're working with, not only in Vice Chair Smith's area, but elsewhere, including Eastern Agency. Mr. Silversmith, just what's the recommendation on that moving forward?
Thank you once again, Honorable Speaker Damon and Honorable Delegate Raymond Smith, for your questions and comments there. So as a response there, as you may have heard or not have heard my earlier presentation, is our needs here on the Navajo Nation. And yes, going back to N9402, the project there, the Lupton Bridge Replacement Project there, it's progressing well, and looking forward to getting that complete. A new $5 million bridge that is near completion, and we're excited about as we draw nearer and closer to the completion date there. It's going to be a huge, momentous, historic project for the community there, and we're looking forward to that day and eventually opening it up fully to traffic, and once again resume commerce and economic development and just daily travel for all the community members there in Lupton, Hawk, and so forth. And now going to the specific additional needs there for 9402 there, and you're right, this bridge replacement project is only a small segment into the overall true needs of 9402, which is a route roughly 20 miles in length, begins in one chapter and goes to another chapter west of Lupton. And as I mentioned earlier, our needs, and you mentioned other needs there in the other communities, White Ruins and so forth. And yes, as I shared earlier, the true needs on the Navajo Nation, as far as identifying it specifically in monetary terms, is the true need is $7.5 billion. And this $200 million that we were going to receive, although it's very appreciated and well received from our federal government, it's just not enough to address every need. And it's going to be difficult to strategically select and identify how we're going to spend $200 million. So it's going to be difficult in that regard. And yes, all those needs there within your region are crucial and they're important there. However, $200 million divided by 110 chapters, that's just $1.8 million if we were going to do it in that manner, and that's not nearly enough. So some projects that we won't be able to award, or some projects we won't be able to identify and start a project. But the need there, I got to go back to that, is $7.5 billion. And for each of our needs in each of those, in our chapters there in your region, it's just not enough. But however, that's not going to prevent us from long-term planning. And we have, and that's not going to stop us, like I said, and we'll continue to pursue funds. And that's one of my recommendations. As you saw my recommendations there, I made 2 recommendations there, is to pursue additional transportation funds there, and that's what we're going to do. But I know recently we did meet with the Lupton chapter and other chapters here from our planning department, and we'll continue to do that, meet with them and provide them with further updates. And the small 2.5 mile segment that we did a couple of years ago of soil stabilizer, I know that was done a couple of years ago, and it needs to be readdressed. And those are some of the needs that we're trying that we have identified, and we're trying to apply funds in that regard. So, but we'll continue to do that, Honorable Delegate Smith, as far as identifying additional amounts of money funds for your delegate region. And yes, the second question there is the hiring of right-of-way agents specifically for 9402 and other similar projects. That's, I feel, this is my opinion here, and not opinion, but on behalf of the division, I want us to forego and eliminate the right-of-way requirement. I don't see, the justification there, again, why a segment of roadway within the trust land of the U.S. government, what is the need of a right-of-way? Ultimately, the land, yes, it goes through multiple parties, but specifically for trust land, why does the federal government require a right-of-way? And I still struggle with that. And so if we eliminate that, then they will eliminate the need for right-of-way agents. So, but if the right-of-way requirement is going to stay there, then yes, you are right. And I further support that we need to pursue hiring and securing right-of-way agents, and that will be their sole responsibility for him or her is to garner and to secure right-of-way documentations and secure eventually right-of-ways for each project. But in short, Delegate Smith, those are my responses, and so I'll return it back to you, Honorable Delegate Speaker Damon. Thank you.
Speaker, this is Delegate Begay.
Thank you very much. That, Honorable Elmer Begay.
Okay, thank you, Speaker. I'll go down. Mr.
Is it,
Silverstone.
Honorable Elmer Begay, are you asking Mr. Silversmith a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Silverstone, okay, this is Dusty again. Under the some projects that did were
Speaker Damon, this is Vice Chair Smith. Follow-up question.
That Honorable Elmer Begay, are you still there? I cannot hear you. That, let me go back to Vice Chair Smith. Follow-up question.
Thank you, Speaker, and also thank you, Mr. Silversmith, and the answer that you provided. I do understand, and I thank you for facilitating those and getting the bridge at 9402. However, the last question that I asked was Klagetoh and Wide Ruins. They passed a resolution requesting for the Iron Wolf, and they were excited about the Iron Wolf when it first came out, and it did its purpose over at Wide Ruins, and that was presented to Klagetoh, and Klagetoh was also interested because they're in a real rocky area, and they do need to have that Iron Wolf. They did pass resolution, and there's folks that live east of Klagetoh on that Gray Cactus Road, and it needs improvement with the use of the Iron Wolf, and they did want to follow up on that and see if it's still available. If it is, maybe coordinate that. That's my follow-up question, Speaker. Thank you.
That, Mr. Silversmith, turn the floor back over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Delegate Speaker Damon. And thank you once again, Honorable Delegate Raymond Smith, for that question and request there. Yes, we did receive the resolution from the communities there, Klagetoh and so forth, for the request for usage of our Iron Wolf. And of course, my reply is going to be yes. We're gonna. That's a project that we want to continue to take action upon, and we will eventually, sir. Just presently understand that we are currently consumed with about 6 projects right now that, well, actually 9 projects, 9 active road construction projects that are happening right now. And we internally, we have created a list as far as our projects that we are actively engaging in, and other projects that we have on our schedule. And I know we in that regard, as far as the request for Iron Wolf is one of those projects that is on our schedule. And the need there, of course, the need and purpose is paramount, is important there for those communities there. But we get many of those requests. Just last week we were in Eastern Agency, Lake Valley, and that was another request for the Iron Wolf to be used out there. So we have over a dozen requests for our usage of our Iron Wolf, and our resources and manpower is very limited. So we're not negating or turning our heads to these requests, but just I appreciate your patience and understanding that we'll eventually get out to Klagetoh and do what we need to do on those rocky terrain and rocky outcropping there. So it's on our schedule, Honorable Delegate Ray Smith. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information, Mr. Silversmith. Hi, colleagues, we were on the closeout, and I know Mr. Silversmith completed his report, and I know that they completed questions, but we were at the end of our agenda. So, colleagues, Mr. Silversmith um, is still here with us, but we are on item number E. Actually, item number 4, announcements, closeout, and a work session.
I got a follow-up question, Speaker.
For
Mr. Silversmith.
Mr. Silversmith on strategic issues. Colleagues, if you're specifically going to, I know that he's getting asked questions about projects specifically. Today, his presentation was on recommendations on how strategically they're going to go ahead and cut the red tape in order for a lot of these projects to go and be fulfilled. So, trying to stay on that tune. Honorable Otto, floor is yours.
10-4, Speaker. I believe my question was in tune to the project, but I was inquiring on overall for the chapters pointing to ARPA, but it somewhere got sidetracked and went to individual projects. But what I'm getting to, another thing, Mr. Silversmith, I guess the barrier of the requirement of the federal funds and these dollars right now currently under ARPA, and it was given to the nation, and I guess I would look at it as the money that is destined for the nation only. It's not part of the federal transportation dollars, and that's the reason why I was asking the question if funds could be of this could be diverted to the chapter directly, so that they can move forward with working hand in hand, and I believe that. I mean, this is the reason why the chapters were established and the local governance. What former president, the late President Albert Hell, and the council at that time had established the Local Governance Act, and in that, that's where a lot of where my question was geared, was how much of the red tape at the one nation level to be withdrawn, and then get that responsibility given to the local level, so the local projects could continue to move forward. But in light of that, as the request is made through ARPA, the dollars, I really hope that you are vetting projects that are project ready, and that way we could try to appropriate these dollars so that these appropriation and whether you're going to request these dollars in one lump sum or request these dollars as one or physical year at a time. But I guess the strategy that you have with the consultation to the roads that you plan to look at and repair and upgrade, and really hope that the graded road projects are one of the projects that are graded road improvement projects is something that could be really pushed forward, because we know paving a highway per mile is about $3 million. So I think with graded road improvement projects, I believe they are a lot better cost efficient to try to spread the dollars out where you can. But yes, you can pave wherever it's really needed, because of maybe due to the population margin and so forth, where it's really needed. Ako ayojoshi ban kid. I really hope that you're just not paving roads that you're just told to pave, but looking at hala easy attain and those are one of my thoughts. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Honorable Otto. Let me go back to Mr. Silversmith for a response.
Speaker, this is Delegate Yellow here. I want to make it short.
Well, let me go to you, Mr. Silversmith. Hold on real quick. Let me go to Honorable Yellow Hair, and I'll go back to you. Honorable Yellow Hair, on recommendations, strategic issues and opportunities.
Yeah, the Speaker of Navajo Nation, yeah, out on the 24 councilman, Mr. Silversmith, thank you for working so hard with this Division of Transportation Department to care roads. I just want to make it short right here. This is in reference to the roads for a 8031 legislations on number is 313-20, and also another one, two more is legislation 314. This road goes to Black Mesa School, but it didn't pass, it's failed. And the other one, 315-20, is a road across right there by Kitsili. And I think all these resolutions has been passed, everything, the right-of-ways has been clear. I just want to have that answer, Mr. Silversmith. I know two passed and one failed, that's to the school. And I know the three legislations all pertains to roads. They're all clear, I think, to all the right-of-ways. Two is supposed to go to the council in summer sessions, and one is I need to reintroduce to Navajo Nation Council again, probably later after summer session. But thank you, Mr. Silversmith. Yeah, I think the right of way is all clear now. One totally speaker here should any by here. So it's not on store here. Shouldn't I go back on mute now? Yeah.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Silversmith, let me go back to you for a response.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker Damon. And I'll go directly back to Honorable Delegate Otto So's questions and comments there. So as I mentioned my earlier example where I said, I gave an example with federal funds, and just conferring here with my staff here, the American Rescue Plan Act funds that are forthcoming, although they are coming from the federal government, they are different as far as there is differentiation from, it's not coming from the Federal Highway Administration, and where we have a program agreement established with FHWA. These are ARPA funds, and so with that comes certain guidance and regulations. So, and one of those is, as Honorable Delegate So had mentioned, is the opportunity for his chapter and his chapter officials to assist in providing progress for some of those projects. And yes, I can say that yes, we would welcome that, and I believe it is allowable. I'll confirm that as far as getting assistance from chapters, and I don't see why it shouldn't. Again, it's a good recommendation, and I like the idea, and it'll alleviate somewhat our workload here. However, and Honorable Delegate Otto So did further mention that, some of the chapter staff could take on some of the responsibilities for some of the smaller tasks associated with the project, and which is great. Like I mentioned, I commend them, but however, and we look forward to that, but we can further exchange ideas and strategic approaches to this, and so we can pursue that, and then I'll get back with you on that, Delegate So, as far as it being allowable, and I'm sure it can, because this isn't FHWA funds. This is ARPA funds, so I'm sure it's allowable. And Honorable Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair, yes, I'm aware of the upcoming legislations that are forthcoming, and I haven't seen the agenda for, maybe it's out there, I just haven't seen it for next week's summer session, so we'll be able to provide technical support. And as far as the legislations, as far as regarding your delegate regional projects in that area, and yes, and a couple of them, all three of those road projects, we still have identified where there's certain phases, certain crucial segments that we have completed. However, we're still getting those firmly solid construction ready for eventual construction, and that won't stop. We're continuing to do that. And this is 3 of those projects that are part of overall of our 149 projects that we're doing. Quite a bit of workload, but this is 3 of those 149, and we're continuing to actively devote some of our time to those 3 projects, and we won't stop until we get to that point where construction is commencing and construction has started. Thank you, Honorable Delegate Speaker Damon.
Thank you very much, Silver-Smith, and thank you very much for your presentation and for the follow-up questions to members of the Naabik'íyáti committee. With that, colleagues, again, we are on. We did a complete Navajo Department of Transportation, and Mr. Silver-Smith came back to continue on after we completed his presentation. So, thank you on that. We didn't hear anybody from IHS on the line, so at this time we're at announcements and close of work session, colleagues. But before I go to that, there is those recommendations that have been presented. But to the division directors, please, the ones that did not submit anything in writing, I greatly appreciate if you could do that, because that's what we're needing to morph into legislative initiatives in order to change some of these laws, in order for us to really try to get a gravel on some of the red tape that needs to be cut and moving forward. So again, thank you everyone to being on the line. Colleagues, at this time, are there any further announcements? I know that there is a Health Education and Human Services Committee meeting still going on. And there is a RDC tour, the drought that's continuing on this week. Tomorrow we do have a Naabik'íyáti committee meeting starting at 10 a.m. So if there's anything else, colleagues, announcements at this time.
Speaker, Delegate Stewart.
Yeah. Honorable Stewart, yes, floor is yours.
Again, good afternoon, Cecilia, Chair and Speaker, on colleagues on the Isnals Agi, on the Naabik'íyáti workstation, and department staff, division directors. Just an announcement, Speaker, again, for the request to do a trail ride. FYI, again, my trail ride will start from Fort Defiance chapter tomorrow morning, going up towards Blue Canyon and ending in Sawmill for the first day. And then the following day, Friday, we'll be leaving from Sawmill, going towards White Clay, Meltwater, and ending in Crystal. And then Saturday will be from Crystal into Fort Defiance on the back road, the N112 on the Old Red Lake Road. And then Sunday from the Fort Defiance Hospital, Salto Medical Center, near there into Windrock. And each day we'll have registration and temperature checks about 8:15 to 8:45. And then I have a opening prayer each day with a different pastor or traditional practitioner. And then we also have the community chapter leadership and community members from all 4 chapters that will be sponsoring a meal for the riders, and doing a little meet and greet with them as well, each day up to that Sunday, Speaker. So I just wanted to make that announcement, and we have had good inquiries and about it for this year from the community members. And I also reached out to Dr. Jill Jim for assistance from CHR as well to do some spot checks from the CHR program for my riders and participants. Just that announcement, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Stewart, and thank you very much for that breakdown. As there are a couple more of our colleagues, it looks like yours is going to be an interesting tour, so that'd be good. We will be having individuals following with water too as well, if needs be. Recommendations on anything, and we do have that finally coming in to welcome you and everybody else. I'll be riding in on Sunday at the fairgrounds, and that's going to be right up front by the um, right at the entrance of the Navajo Nation Fairgrounds. We'll have a huge tent set up, and come join us, everyone. It's going to be a very unique experience. If you haven't seen that, it's awesome to see all the riders come in during the summer session tradition. So again, I know that we have Honorable Elmer Begay, Honorable Freeland, Honorable Stewart, Chairman Nez, who has started his journey and who kicked it off, I think, almost 2 weeks ago. So I think is that it? Who's the other one? There might be others that are still coming on board, but we thank everybody for being a part of the discussion and part of that tradition. So again, thank you, colleagues. Is there any other further announcements?
Speaker,
Yes, Honorable Otto.
Thank you very much. Just FYI, we have a Navajo Hopi Land Commission meeting tomorrow. So just to commissioners who are on the line, just a reminder. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Honorable Otto. There's none. Colleagues, time now is 1:50 p.m. I'm gonna go ahead and close out this work session. Thank you very much for being on the line and appreciate that. Thank you to the staff and everyone. Have a good day. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. And if we don't see you, everybody's welcome on Sunday there at the fairgrounds, starting at 1 o'clock to 6 p.m. Yeah, I'm going to